Feel free to answer this based on whatever metrics you deem important, but actual numbers would be helpful. I am getting back into exercise after a few years of inactivity. At 18 years old, I could run a mile in under 7 minutes, bench press 185 pounds for 12 repetitions, shoulder press 145 pounds for 12 repetitions, and squat 225 pounds for 25 repetitions. At that time, I weighed 150 pounds. At age 28, 4 years ago, after working out consistently for 3 months, I ran a 5-kilometer race in 25 minutes, could squat 225 pounds 12 times, bench press 185 pounds 5 times, and weighed approximately 165 pounds. I am trying to understand what my expectations should be for myself at age 32. Thank you for all the responses. You have encouraged me to keep my expectations high without injuring myself. The best is yet to come. Story 1. I am 36 years old and in the best shape I have ever been in my life. I plan to have a six-pack for the first time by summer. I went through a rough patch and reached 240 pounds at 6 feet tall. I am now down to 187 pounds and can run more than 5 miles without any issues. I have never had larger or more defined muscles at any point in my life. Story 2. I didn't start taking my health seriously until my late 30s. I am in my early 40s now and still progressing. I ran a 7-minute 15-second mile last week, but I typically focus on distance with little speed work. I average 8-minute 35-second miles on long trail runs. My lifting numbers are probably not impressive. I never lift anything I can't perform more than 4 to 5 repetitions of. Incidentally, I have yet to sustain a lifting injury. I can do 10 strict pull-ups at 6 feet 2 inches and 185 pounds, which may be a good metric. Story 3. Probably 16. I was an all-state wrestler and in great shape in terms of weight, conditioning, and strength. After that, I did no physical activity until I started trying to get back into shape a few weeks ago. Story 4. It was a year after I had heart valve replacement surgery, a problem from birth, and I was determined to stay on active duty as an Air Force officer. The Air Force was big on running at the time, so that was my focus. I stayed on active duty for another 10 years. Story 5. 32 and have yet to hit it. Fitness has many dimensions. It is not just about putting up the maximum numbers on a bench. Story 6. I would say 25 to 27. I was training mixed martial arts 3 to 4 days per week, plus doing yoga and weightlifting on off days. On Saturdays at the mixed martial arts gym, we would do a sprint circuit that pushed my cardiovascular endurance to high levels. At one point, I was able to spar at an intense pace, throwing punches and going at it for 5 rounds in a row. Story 7. I haven't peaked yet. That is a defeatist mentality. You have to keep trying to get better. I understand if you played college or professional sports, but for the average person, I would be willing to bet that if you actually trained, you could be in the best shape of your life. Story 8. I was on a strict budget in my 20s and was a fitness model. Ironically, I am in my 30s now and am stronger and more fit. On a strict budget, all I could afford was dry, woody chicken breasts, frozen broccoli, and potatoes. I also couldn't sleep as much due to the demands of being lower on the corporate ladder. It's funny how the more you rise, the more freedom you have in your schedule. Now, I can afford Bell & Evans chicken, fresh produce, vitamins, pre-workout supplements, protein powder, and this is just food. I can also purchase healthy meals from restaurants that protect me from the monotony and miseries of meal preparation. I can now also afford proper equipment like squat shoes, a quality lifting belt, VersaGrips, more fashionable gym attire, and many other helpful gym products. I am way more fit now than I was a decade ago. Story 9. I was 17 years old, tanned and fit from playing tennis. I was convinced I was the ugliest man alive because none of the girls I liked me back. Now I would give anything to look like that. I let myself go and stopped trying, all because some high school girls ignored me. Story 10. Currently 26 years old, strong and fit. Bench press 135 kilograms. Deadlift 230 kilograms. V-taper physique and six-pack abs. In terms of stamina, 4 to 5 years ago, I was able to run 10 kilometers or more and was 29 kilograms lighter. Story 11. I didn't really start slowing down until 40. Now at 48, my strength is about the same, but I won't reach my personal best for the mile or anything shorter than maybe a marathon. Currently training for a full Ironman, 13% body fat, and bench pressing my weight of 185 pounds for 12 repetitions. Story 12. Overall, I would say 19. But at 50, I could do 4 times 17 pull-ups, so I was stronger later. Much slower than I could run at 19, though. Story 13, 21 to 26 years old. 5-minute mile, 380-pound bench press, and 540-pound squat. I stopped for years. Now I run a 7-minute mile, probably bench 270 pounds, and squat due to back problems, I'm not sure. Not worth it. Story 14. I am 38 years old, and as I get older, I find that my muscles are stronger but smaller. I am less explosive but have more endurance. Story 15. Honestly, ages 24 to 27 were my 3 best years. I could do anything and everything all day. I honestly question how I did it all the time. Story 16. Probably around when I was 26 to 28. I'm still in great shape now at 47, but it takes a lot more work to get there, whereas when I was younger, getting ripped and strong was really fast and easy. Story 17. I was a drug addict and alcoholic from my mid-teens to my late 20s, so my physical fitness was not really a priority. I have been sober since 2014 and am in the best shape I have ever been in. My addiction shifted to weightlifting and hiking. Story 18. Ages 27 to 32 were my best years. I do not have any statistics, but I was going to the gym every day, following a strict weightlifting program, and monitoring my diet and macronutrients. After that, I tried to maintain it, but depression and alcoholism are very challenging, along with work schedules making it hard to fit in workouts, and injuries taking longer to heal. Story 19. Peak cardiovascular fitness was in the teenage years with swimming or at 18 with wrestling. Peak strength was around 31 to 32 years old. I am currently in the middle of those stages at 35 years old. Story 20. It depends on what is considered physically fit. I could run a 7-minute mile in my late teens and early 20s in the military, but I hate running. When I was in my mid-30s, I was doing 130 pounds incline dumbbell press for repetitions, about 170 pounds single-arm bent-over rows for repetitions, and 1,600 pounds leg press for repetitions. A lot of people thought I was using performance-enhancing drugs since I was about 220 pounds and around 16 to 17% body fat at 6 feet 1 inch. However, I had been lifting weights consistently for about 15 years at that point, and when I left the military, I did not have to focus on cardio as much. Story 21. I peaked at 34 with a sub-7-minute mile. A sports injury took me out but is well healed. Now at 43, I celebrate when I can get my mile under 10 minutes. Story 22. 32-33 currently and improving steadily. Peak condition is still far off. Abdominal definition is getting better, and overall muscle development is decent as well. I started around 28-29. Story 23. I was 17 during my senior year in high school when I played soccer. I played pickup basketball with friends occasionally during college, but not consistently enough to achieve the same level of conditioning. Story 24. Around age 21, I was nearly done with college. I weighed 150 pounds and could bench press around 250 pounds, which was not much of an improvement. About 4 months prior, I weighed 200 pounds and could bench press 200 pounds. I could squat about 300 pounds. Honestly, I was aiming to lose weight without losing strength, so I made sure I could maintain or increase my performance. It was not my main focus. I could run a 5 or 6 minute mile on 0-degree incline. I could run a solid 6-minute flat mile on a 15 or 20-degree incline. I don't fully recall other details. I did a lot of cardio, swimming, and calisthenics. I could do 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. I could do 1 or 2 pull-ups. I really should have worked more on my back, shoulders, triceps, and related muscles. Story 25. I am currently at my peak fitness. I am a 26-year-old male, 6 feet tall. I am not fully fit yet, but I have lost 90 pounds since last May, having peaked at 308 pounds. I have been working on muscle gain, cardiovascular health, and flexibility. If I lose 40 more pounds and work out consistently, I will be at 180 pounds and in good shape for the first time in my life. By next summer, I will be looking sharp. The one great thing about having been obese my entire life until now is that every day I am at my peak fitness, which feels very satisfying. Story 26. In my mid to late 20s, after I stopped drinking, smoking marijuana, and eating poorly, I started working out and taking nutrition seriously. When I was 30, I got into an accident that severely injured my knee, and it has been a struggle since. I gained some weight due to limited mobility and depression, and losing it has been a challenge. Story 27. At 15, running a 16:04.5 kilometer race and consistently running 50 miles a week. Height 6 feet and approximately 140 pounds. At 18, still maintaining around a 17-minute 5-kilometer time, more muscular than at 15, able to cycle 100 miles with relative ease. Running performance declined due to injury at 16. Weight around 155 pounds. Now 22, aiming to peak again in the future, weighing 170 pounds, trying to lose weight and return to more running. Can probably run around a 5-minute 40-second mile and believes a sub-20-minute 5-kilometer is possible, but not by much. Still active and healthy overall, may incorporate more weight training if unable to resume running effectively. Story 28. Overall, right now at 32, I am strongest. I was strongest in my early 20s when I prioritized powerlifting and did no cardio. Then I started doing cardio regularly in my late 20s and added more yoga, stretching, and flexibility workouts. I am running a marathon this weekend. I can wake up on any day of the week and complete a 13-mile run and follow it up in the gym with sets of 20 straight pull-ups. I feel more flexible, energetic, and have more endurance than I did at 20. Story 29. The only caveat is that I was a smoker at the time, but I was the strongest I had been, the lightest I was since high school, and overall looked solid. For me, I was never going to pass for Chad Thundercock. If I had that body with my current financial situation and lifestyle, I would have been able to do some damage. Story 30. I was running sub-5-second 40-yard dashes and squatting over 400 pounds. I was getting scouted for football and working out hard because there was a decent chance I would receive a full-ride scholarship to a Division I college. Unfortunately, I was careless one night and tripped over a sandbox. I tore my anterior cruciate ligament, medial collateral ligament, and meniscus. It was nearly as severe as tearing my leg off without actually doing so. I had a cast on my entire senior year of high school. I don't have any illusions that I was a National Football League caliber player or even an elite college athlete, but I was hoping to get a few years of free college at least. Story 31. 35 to 40. Dropped a little below, but am putting in more muscle than I ever had at 46. Working on getting leaner too. The upside of the training over the years is I feel none of those, oh, I'm over 30 or 40 pains that everyone keeps talking about. I know aging is coming, but it seems that putting in the work really keeps it away. Story 32. I got my most muscular in my 30s. I think the momentum is harder to build, but you have a wealth of knowledge now about what works for you specifically. Diets you can handle without restrictions. Workouts you enjoy and your body responds to, not focusing on form or anything. Less of an ego. I also think when we were in our 20s and ZYZZ had just died, there was such a this is how you work out mindset, and if you didn't lift that way, it was seen as a bad thing. When I got fit again at 32, I emphasized the muscle groups I think make me look good. It was really motivating, and everyone told me I had nice shoulders. Story 33. I was 33. I did triathlons, CrossFit, and had a six-pack if I ate a few salads and had good lighting. Story 34. The moment I lose more than 40 kilograms from my current weight, I will be in the peak fitness of my life if I achieve that within the next 20 to 30 years. I am currently 31 years old. Story 35. October 28, 2005. Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego. It has been a slow decline since then. Story 36. I've been active my entire life. Probably hit my peak in my mid-30s. I'm in my late 40s now and feel pretty good about where I am physically, mentally, and professionally. I keep working towards staying in a good place in life, and so far it has worked out pretty well. Story 37. Physically strongest when I was 25. Best cardiovascular fitness at around 35. 36 now, but just came back from some long-term travels. In a year, I am pretty sure I will be in the best all-around shape of my life easily. Story 38. I am 32 now and fitter than I have ever been. Admittedly, it is a low bar, but still. I was the child who absolutely hated and was bad at anything athletic in school. I started running a few months ago and can now complete a 5-kilometer run in 28 minutes. I often get overtaken by elderly people, so there is plenty of room for improvement with time and consistency. Story 39. Spent that winter doing military-style training, including mountain hikes in the snowline and alpine areas. Story 40. Honestly, you have a lot of time. There are people out there doing secret work in their 50s. No joke, the fittest person I have ever met, hands down, was a search and rescue person who was 58 and had no intent to stop until he was lowered into the ground. Year after year, he was still improving his previous times. Obviously, you never know, but I have no reason to believe he had pharmacological assistance. Story 41. Around 28. I'm still fit now, but having played soccer most of my life, I remember being able to bike to games, play 2 intense games, then bike home and still have the energy to go out partying that same night. Story 42. Probably 16. South Texas Heat. I was in football and marching band. Marching band practice was from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and we were outside all day. On Saturdays and Sundays, it was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Texas Heat playing football. So 7 days a week for the entirety of the summer, I was outside in 90-degree Fahrenheit weather, running and being active. Once school started, marching band began at 7 a.m. and stopped when school started. Football started right after school ended and went until 7 p.m. It was still 90 degrees because it's Texas. Some days during football, we wouldn't be on the field. We'd be in the weight room. I was consistently lifting 200 pounds. I doubt I could get close to that now, squatting almost 300 pounds. I weighed 145 pounds at 5 feet 10 inches and had less than 1% body fat. I could run a 6-minute mile. I had insane lung capacity from marching and playing the tuba, which also weighed 65 pounds and was on my back about 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. I have pictures of myself from back then, and it was my ideal body type. I had my long hair and now I'm bald. I had no visible fat and a lot of lean, clearly visible muscle. I could never get back there just because my frame is bigger, but that's when I was at my peak fitness. Story 43. I am 33 now and probably in the best overall shape of my life. I am absolutely the strongest I have ever been and definitely the most flexible. I ran a marathon a few years ago and am now aiming for speed in a half marathon in a month. When I was 14 to 18 years old in high school, I was doing more than 2 hours of varsity swimming and water polo, so that was probably my best cardiovascular shape. I am looking to surpass that level someday. Story 44. That was long ago and I do not want to remember that time, mostly because in the next 2 years everything went wrong and I still have to deal with that. Story 45. Currently 33. I am all over the place, but I would say about 26 to 28 were my peak physical prime and best balance. I had my lowest body fat percentage at about 11%. I was still pretty strong with my big lifts and ran a mile in about 6 minutes and 30 to 7 minutes. Currently, I think I am at my strongest, but aesthetically not the best. I am maybe 15 to 17% body fat. I have not run a mile in what feels like decades, but all my lifts have greatly increased. Story 46. I have been lifting on and off since I was 21. I started taking it seriously at 25. I took up powerlifting at 27, and at 30, I am still breaking personal records, so I guess I am still at my peak. Story 47. I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years, from 2003 to 2009. My second deployment to Iraq was in a relatively quiet area with not much to do besides working out. By the time I came home, my then ex-wife could not believe the physical condition I was in. Lifting weights and running constantly for 9 months straight made a significant difference. I was in good shape even before I went there, and that experience definitely improved my fitness. I am 41 years old now and have a typical dad body. Story 48. Got a new job that had a full gym in the building. I started working out on my lunch break while doing a 20-hour fast with a 4-hour eating window. It was my first time seriously lifting, so I was the strongest and fittest I had ever been. My waist went from 40 inches down to 34 inches, and I was bench pressing around 185 pounds, 10 reps for 3 sets. Story 49, probably 26 for overall fitness. Best endurance running is a tie between 20 and 33 when I trained for a marathon, probably 33 more so. Story 50. I was never lean or anything but had great endurance as a runner between 18 and 24 years old. Mental and physical health declined and I gained weight. It was never extreme, but my stamina decreased significantly. I am 37 now and started CrossFit this year. If my body and mind continue improving at this rate, I will be in the best shape of my life by the end of the year. It is never too late to start. Story 51. I got married, which inspired me to get in better shape. I lost 70 pounds, developed abs, and transformed myself. I wish I had done it younger, but better late than never. Story 52. In my 40s and in the best shape of my life. I found some old teenage clothes, and they were loose on me. The pants were literally falling off and I was at my ideal body mass index in my teens. My back never bothers me anymore. Story 53, running-wise, I was at my peak during my sophomore year of high school. Strength-wise, right now at 24, I can finally lift a plate comfortably and squat and deadlift over 200 pounds. I have a long way to go, so I might get stronger next year. I struggled with that in high school and college, though. Story 54. Depends on the physical goal. I was definitely stronger and recovered faster when I was younger, but now at 34, I am about to run a half marathon, and I have easily achieved the best endurance and leg strength of my life. You can always get stronger and better. The only thing age does is make rest and nutrition even more important. Story 55. At age 20, I had a major accident, and my general health and fitness declined significantly. It recovered slowly until it peaked again around age 40, but has been declining ever since. Story 56. I am in the best shape of my life right now. The past 5 months have been the most consistent I have ever been at the gym. Story 57. I am a late bloomer age-wise, so I am still peaking. When I get my mustache, then I will know I am reaching it. I am 31 years old. Story 58. In college, I was really skinny but ripped, lifting weights and playing sports constantly. I was 5 feet 10 inches and about 140 pounds. I let myself slide after college, marriage, and having kids. I got divorced at 38 and decided to hit the gym again. I got back into shape and reduced my weight to about 170 pounds, from a high of about 215. Not the college ripped, but in good shape. At 42, I moved and got into ultimate frisbee, playing basketball 5 times a week. I lost fat but gained a lot of muscle and stayed around 160 to 170 pounds. I moved again at 48, lost my frisbee and basketball groups, and became a bit lazy. A couple of years later, I started running. By the time I turned 55, I worked my way up to about 120 miles per month and ran a half marathon every month for a year. I have since cut that down, added mountain biking, a little basketball, and weight training again. I am 62, still 5 feet 10 inches, and weighed 174 pounds a couple of hours ago. Of all those ages, I would say my mid-40s was the peak. I could lift more and run more than in my 20s. At 62, I feel many of the aches and pains from all my mistakes, even though I am in good shape. Story 59. I am 29 years old and have been consistently active since age 16. Ran cross-country from age 16 to 18. Marine Corps from 18 to 23. Fastest 3-mile time at 19 years old was 17 minutes and 50 seconds. Today, at 29, I am a slower runner because I do not run daily anymore. In terms of strength, I am at my best. Squat, 315 pounds for 3 repetitions. Deadlift, conventional 425 pounds. Bench press, 315 pounds. I am 5 feet 7 inches tall and weigh 165 pounds. Story 60. I haven't peaked. I might crest and fall, but at 29, I have at least 2 decades ahead. Before I injure myself at 28, I hit the 1,000-pound club. 245-pound bench press. 335-pound squat. 435-pound deadlift. I haven't run a straight mile for speed in a long time. Story 61. You go more by height and weight. Age does matter, but not significantly unless you are between 18 and 30 or over 55. So what height and weight are we talking about? I don't know, best is subjective. I could run better when I was 23 before I took an arrow to my knee. I ran a 5-kilometer race every day, and my best time for a 5-kilometer was 22 minutes and 23 seconds. I weighed 160 pounds. I could squat 405 pounds at 16 until I got chop blocked during football. I weighed 170 pounds. Now at 32, I am 5 feet 6 inches tall and weigh 200 pounds. I am working on my running again, but after 2 knee injuries, it is tough. I would be happy to run a sub 30-minute 5-kilometer again. I can squat 405 pounds, but my mental block from my knees keeps me stuck there, and I am satisfied. I am focused more on weight loss and would like to get down to 180 pounds. I have a 345-pound deadlift and a 270-pound bench press. I could probably lift more on both with belts or straps, but I prefer to train raw. Story 62. Probably around 10 to 12 years old. I was doing athletic activities at that point and starting to develop muscle, although I was always overweight. Then I got into theater instead of karate in middle school and started eating too much, so it was a downward slide from that point. But clearly, I am not the norm. Most people put even a minimum amount of effort into taking care of themselves, so you should base your understanding on their stories instead. Story 63. In terms of cardiovascular health, the year 2016 is relevant. Muscle mass is probably best assessed now. The individual is a 52-year-old male. Leanness, defined as the lowest body fat, is definitely current. Story 64. Ran up Schiehallion 4 times in about 6.5 hours. Placed 6th in age group in a Spartan Ultra. Deadlifted 211 kilograms at 74 kilograms body weight. Early 40s now and cannot even look at that now. However, I look better than ever. Story 65. A lot of it has to do with sports. Those of us who were in college sports would probably say then, unless you went professional. Story 66. I am 27 years old and still in considerable shape, making progress on my lifts. I do not feel close to my peak. Story 67. Probably right now, so 18. I am 6 feet 4 inches tall and 330 pounds. So that does not say much. I am a college football player and lift in the top 0.1% of most Americans. My mile time is a little slow at 8 minutes. I will definitely be in better shape after I retire, with a goal weight of around 260 pounds. Story 68. In general terms, probably 19. Playing soccer and indoor soccer 3 days a week. Endurance includes about 38 mountain bike marathons. Strength reached personal bests for my 50th. An annoying trapezius injury has slowed things for 6 months, so I may or may not reach those highs again. Story 69. For me, ages 26, 32, 34, and 42 were all times when I became legitimately strong. I am currently starting over after shoulder surgery. Story 70. Haven't hit it yet. Cardiovascular-wise, maybe 21. With the gyms closed, I took up running again and was able to run a 5:35 mile if memory serves me right and regularly run about 7 miles. Strength-wise, at 25, I just hit 515 squat, 360 bench press, and 585 deadlift, and I think I can keep improving. I also completed an 18-mile hike at Sequoia National Park in the last couple of years, so I still have that endurance. Story 71. Completed 75 hard. Dropped to low teens body fat percentage. Weighed 190 pounds, and could bench press 315 pounds for 3 repetitions. Rucked 4 miles a day with 45 pounds. I am 41 now and getting close to being back in that shape. By midsummer, I will be there. Story 72. Mid-30s for me. Training for Ironman triathlons. Took a lot of time to train. I am glad I did them, but never again. My wife even said, after I told her what training for one involves, that she does not want me to do another as she would barely see me. Story 73. In 2023 and 2024, I could run a marathon every week. I had the highest lift maximums of my life, well over 1,000 pounds combined between squats, deadlifts, and bench presses. My bench press maximum was 375 pounds, while I only weighed 215 pounds. All of this was achieved with absolutely zero performance-enhancing drug usage. Then I had children and completely stopped working out. Thankfully, the great shape I was in carried over, so even though I am less fit than I have ever been at 36 years old, I can still hike, climb, and wrestle. I say all of this to make an important point. Getting in great shape at least once while you are younger will make your body easier to maintain throughout your life. If you wait until after age 30 to start working out for the first time, it will be much more difficult. Story 74. At 17, I was offered scholarships and had people approaching me to play rugby professionally overseas. At that age, I would have been around 10 to 12% body fat at 120 to 125 kilograms. I mostly focused on calisthenics because I would get too big doing weights. We found this out at 15 when I bulked up to 130 kilograms in 3 months from 105 kilograms. I could bench press 150 kilograms at that age. I was never interested in going to the next level. Most professionals overseas have bad attitudes, and I wanted no part of it. I stopped taking sport seriously after having issues with the pressure to be something I did not want to be. I do wish I had continued kickboxing and mixed martial arts. I could have done them professionally and quite happily. Now, at 35, overweight but getting there. Down 60 kilograms overall on diet alone and walking. There is no chance I will get to where I once was. I will be lucky to get under 135 kilograms, at best 125 kilograms, but I would need surgery and likely some skin removal if I got that lean. I am not tall, just built like a tank. I have not been to a gym in nearly 5 years due to niggles, injuries, and wear and tear from 12 years of rugby and all these rest. I would say I could still bench press 140 kilograms. I did push-ups the other day just to see, and knocked out 20 with a little room for more. Still very strong, just not as mobile. I would be confident even now of doing a couple of rounds in boxing or at least one in mixed martial arts before getting exhausted. Story 75. When I was 17, I could run a 5-minute mile, do push-ups and crunches until I got bored, and complete 25 pull-ups multiple times a day. However, I had very little to do besides go to school and spend time alone, so I am not sure if that counts. Story 76. 18. Fresh out of boot camp. I am in my 40s now, going back to the gym a few times a week. Feeling pretty good. Getting strong. Story 77. Went from 235 pounds to 180 pounds in 23 weeks. Lifting weights and walking 3 miles. A 32-inch waist with big shoulders and arms is awesome. Story 78. Currently in the best shape of my life and it feels so good. I see how far I have come and how I have improved compared to my previous best shape. I finally figured out all aspects of staying healthy and have the discipline to keep myself active and on track. I think as long as you have a good mindset and no serious injuries, you can go further than before. Story 79. From 28 to 30 years old, I joined the service late in life. I could run and jump and did not look too bad. I have let myself go a lot in the 6 years I have been out. Story 80. I was on active duty in the 82nd Airborne Division, running miles every day after 45 minutes of ground workout exercise. When we were not doing that, we were usually engaged in some form of physical activity. I will never be in that kind of shape again. Story 81. Climbed Mount Snowdon in a day and traveled back to London at 2 a.m. The following morning, I played a 90-minute game of football at left back. Didn't bat an eyelid. Story 82. I'm 30 now and almost certainly in the worst shape of my life since hitting puberty. Sprinting-wise, I was my fastest and most agile around age 16 to 17, sprinting a 40-meter dash just over 5.00 seconds and a 100-meter dash just over 11.5 seconds. Lateral and straight-line speed varied throughout my playing years but never really dropped below college athlete status. Strength-wise, I was peaking in the winter before my college spring sport by squatting 450 to 460 pounds when I was 21 and 22. As far as being in shape for my spring sport, it is hard to tell which year I peaked. That would have been between the ages of 21 and 23. Levels of competition changed through those years, and generally my fitness decreased as I aged up to 26 when I retired. I am not suggesting I was a professional athlete. I played competitively in my local area after graduating college among others who were aspiring to play in college, or former college players. Regarding aesthetics, I would say that was age 24 when I was swimming 4 to 5 mornings a week and lifting 4 to 5 nights a week. Shoulders were bulky and square. Chest was tight with borderline cleavage when I flexed my pectorals. Waistline was relatively narrow compared to my shoulders. There was a resemblance of a six-pack. Glutes were tight, round, and stuck out of most pants in a good way. Do not ask about distance running. That is not for me. As for recommendations, anything that can be viewed as a sprint where you push the revolutions per minute meter or effort level to the red portion of your dashboard is the secret. What that means to each individual is different. I have picked up spinning on a stationary bike. First, I thought, how hard can spinning on a bike be? When you crank up the resistance and attempt to keep up with the 70-year-old woman next to you, you will be pushing the needle to the red portion of your meter. Story 83. At 28, weighing 155 pounds, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week and still managed to hit the gym 5 to 6 times a week. I was extremely lean with low body fat, mostly because I barely had time to eat and was constantly burning calories from long work hours, all while training consistently. I was strong enough to dumbbell bench 110 pounds for 10 repetitions, and every muscle on my body was clearly defined. Now at 36, I only work out about 3 times a week, though I still eat clean. I am definitely less lean, but I weigh 170 pounds and carry more muscle mass, giving me a more solid look. I have stopped benching due to a shoulder injury and I do not lift heavy anymore. Honestly, I would say this is my peak, and women, especially my wife, seem to prefer how I look now. Story 84. I would say I spent many years doing mostly wrestling and some mixed martial arts. I broke my nose in the first match of the day and just put tampons up there. Then I broke my arm in 3 places and had to forfeit about a year for full recovery. It was the big bone, not one of the 2 smaller bones. Then life took over. I met my wife, settled down, went to university, and now I just work out casually. Still in pretty good shape in my mid-20s. I should get back into working out, although I have felt better than I have in years by switching up my diet. Seriously, if you care about your health at all, you need to eat organ meat. Kidneys, liver, and heart are all really good and pretty typical meat-wise. Most people eat only muscle meat, which has limited nutritional value besides protein and a few amino acids. Organ meat is the exact opposite. It has almost every vitamin and mineral. I have recently moved to eating raw meat with blue rare steaks every day, eating raw blood and raw liver at least once a week. I cannot recommend eating raw liver enough. It is very delicious. You will want to harvest it yourself and get it as fresh as possible. I usually purchase it the same day from my connections at farms, or if I have hunted a big animal like a deer, I get the blood fresh from the deer, remove the liver, and eat it instantly after the kill. Real fresh blood should not be liquid. If the blood is still liquid, it is poor quality and will taste bad. Real fresh blood is like jelly almost instantly. Story 85. I am 42 now, and I feel fitter than I have ever been. I have been stronger before, but I weighed more and did not look as good. I was more cardio fit when I ran a marathon, but I was not nearly this strong. Now I have a great combination going, and my next fitness goal is to climb Mount Rainier. For specifics, I lift weights 3 times a week, never working with a load over 250 pounds to prevent injury, but doing a lot of volume. I do cardio 3 times a week, usually a 10-kilometer run at a 7:30 pace or on the stationary bike, working hard for an hour. I climb twice a week, hitting 5.11 climbs and V3 to V5 boulder problems. I excel at racquetball and basketball at my gym whenever I can find a game. It is great. Story 86. During my senior year of high school, I was a powerlifter, and I trained the football team in weightlifting. I am still somewhat stocky and well-built, but my fatherly physique is becoming more noticeable. Story 87. At 18, I was at what I would say was peak fitness. I ran a sub 5:30 mile, weighed 175 pounds most of the time, and was generally fit. My heart rate was low enough that doctors asked questions. This is a side effect of good cardiovascular health and running a lot. I ran cross-country and track. I have other running times, but a mile is usually the easiest to reference. Daily push-ups were around 100, and my plank time, although I am not good at planks, was about a 5-minute personal record. My 100-meter sprint was decent, the 200-meter was my best sprint, the 400-meter was tough, and the 800-meter was extremely challenging. By 19, I hardly ran at all. I was on a college club team for ultimate frisbee, which was my only exercise, and I retained most of my general fitness until around age 20. However, I started smoking and drinking during this time and considered myself out of shape in that sense. This was a difficult period of my life. My weight went from about 150 pounds at 19 to 230 pounds by 21, along with other unrelated issues. By 22, I reduced my weight to 180 pounds and have maintained that since. I was always a little clumsy and uncoordinated with catching and jumping, which caused one of the 3 biggest injuries I've ever had. I will probably never be that fit again. But after I turned about 25, I had a roommate who would play catch and drink with me, and I noticed something. My coordination was incredible compared to when I was younger. I was genuinely more athletic overall, just less fit. I caught throws that surprised me when I looked at my hand holding the disc, making impressive grabs. If only that level of athleticism had been there before I became a degenerate. Live and learn. I am 28 now and trying to ease myself back into regular, gentle exercise. Currently, I am doing yoga and stretching, and maybe some light running in the future. Story 88. At 21, I had surgery related to a sports injury, and then another 3 years later. I still managed to stay in shape after recovery, but it was never the same. Story 89. At 35, I had just finished losing a lot of weight. I weighed 68 kilograms at 178 centimeters. I rode a bike for exercise and would do a 40-kilometer nonstop ride in about 100 minutes. I experienced a significant decline after that due to various personal and family reasons, including the coronavirus pandemic. However, I switched to strength training because I prefer it. At 40, my lifts are decent, for example, a 1-repetition maximum squat of 130 kilograms, but I am still overweight. I look forward to achieving a better combination of weight and strength by the age of 45, aiming to weigh around 80 kilograms with the same or greater strength, without carrying excess body fat. Story 90. Maybe 24 years old. Could carry 85 pounds of gear and run for 10 hours. Could snatch 185 pounds for 4 repetitions. Could walk for literally days. I think I covered 100 miles in a day once. Story 91. As an experienced powerlifter, I can say unequivocally that many of the lift numbers here are absolute nonsense. Story 92. When I was 35, I decided I wanted to gain muscle mass and some solid weight. For 2 years, I worked out every other day, no matter what, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Day, it was my religion. I went from 167 pounds to 209 pounds in those 2 years. At 37, I was 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 209 pounds. For 13 years thereafter, I was a unit. Story 93. Right now, I am 25 years old. I box Monday to Friday, run 3 miles a day from Monday to Saturday, and do boxing-specific lifting on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Story 94. Physical strength. Right now, I am going all out like Ronnie Coleman on weights I used to find heavy, and it is amazing. Cardiovascular. Honestly, I want this to improve, but I know I will probably lose some strength, and I am not ready for that. Story 95. Age 24 to 26 when I was an expedition backpacking guide. 30 miles a week with a 70-pound pack living on quinoa, lentils, and rice strips the extra weight right off. I looked like a full-on lumberjack. Story 96. My strength peak was at 32, but my overall fitness, including cardiovascular fitness, was at 48 so far. I am working to improve it now in my early 50s. Story 97. I am 67. This might be my peak. Surfing, swimming, stand-up paddleboarding, and mountain hiking are as good as ever, better than most 30-year-olds for sure. Story 98. I am 40, but it is only because I caught the gym bug at 38. I continued until COVID-19 hit, and that was the end of it. Story 99. From ages 28 to 31, I would walk everywhere and swim up to 10 miles a week. I was an avid free diver. Then I started a job that prevented me from swimming, and my physical shape declined from reasonably good to resembling a basketball. Story 132 is about when I was at my strongest. I am 34 now, but I have somewhat slowed down on workouts, even though I always kick myself for it. I should be doing more, but I am often caught up playing video games and being distracted by Reddit and YouTube. I am only slightly weaker now. I know I could get back to where I was before after 1 month of training. Story 101. It quite depends on how one measures. For endurance events, many people peak much later in life. Instead of peaking in their 20s for most physical activities, endurance athletes often reach their peak anywhere from their 30s to their 50s. I have also known individuals over 70 who completed the Bay Area Triple, which is bicycling 300 miles in 24 hours. Story 102. Physically at 19. Globally now, male age 45. Even physically, I am better despite having injuries in some joints that were not injured at 19. Story 103. Competitive weightlifter, strongman, and powerlifter who ran a 5-kilometer run every morning in approximately 22 to 25 minutes at a body weight between 90 and 110 kilograms. Currently working on returning to training with a proper methodology instead of just following a rigid routine. Previously, I weighed 160 kilograms, so the routine mattered more than perfect training. Story 104. Cardio fitness when I was 28 in the Army, peak physical condition around 42, and now at 52 I am at my strongest and still gaining. Story 105. 25 and life is a cruel mistress. I was in the best shape of my life and ended up getting cancer. I have never been the same since. At least I have memories. Story 106. 24. So about 10 years ago. Working from home since 2020 feels like my body has atrophied just sitting at my desk all day. Story 107. At age 55, I was diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer. Until then, I was within a few pounds of my high school wrestling weight. I cycled 7 miles to work each morning, followed by a 9-mile run, gymnastic equipment workout, and the bike ride home at the end of the day. I could run a sub-7-minute mile. 3 years of androgen deprivation therapy, which is a chemical castration that eliminates testosterone in the body, wreaked havoc on my body. A right hip and left knee joint replacement, both related to old athletic injuries, eliminated my ability to run. Now at age 70, I cycle 60 to 90 minutes a day, use the pull-up bar next to my office every time I walk by it, do 50 to 70 push-ups at once, and do a set of dumbbell exercises every time my smartwatch tells me I have been sitting too long. I miss being in the shape I used to be in, but we do what we can. Never give up, never surrender. Story 108. I am 37 now. Around 29 to 31 was my peak fitness. Around 26 to 27 was my best physique. Between 29 and 31, I was competing in Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo competitions every 3 to 4 months. I was running 3 or 4 days a week. I did 10-kilometer runs and a few half marathons during that time as well. At 26 to 27, I was doing calisthenics every day. My job was in a warehouse and I was a big guy who did the heavy lifting. I started an office job after that, so I got fitter, but my physique declined. Story 109. At 16, I was practicing martial arts. Then, I got a nasty cyst in my lower back, which required surgery twice but never fully healed. I couldn't exert myself much without it becoming reinfected and bleeding. It was hard to do martial arts or work out after that because I would end up staining my pristine white GI pants with blood every so often. Story 110. I am 31 and have been consistently lifting for 9 years. I run during the week as well and can maintain an 8-minute 30-second pace. Not the best time, but I also weigh 230 to 240 pounds. I am stronger now than I have ever been. I can squat 405 pounds for 10 repetitions and bench press 315 pounds for 7 repetitions. The most important thing is to stay consistent and work out even when you do not feel like it. Story 111. In terms of body comfort, I would say 16 to 19 years old. I was overweight before and after that period. I was 63 kilograms and 175 centimeters tall. Now I am at my strongest, having gone to the gym for about 3 months, and weigh 91 kilograms with the same height of 175 centimeters. Those 91 kilograms include fat weight, not muscle weight. Story 112. Around 32, I would say I trained 400 to 500 kilometers a week, weighed 78 kilograms, and could climb, sprint, and time trial. Part of it was that I had several good friends who were professional cyclists and trained with them a lot. You kept up or got left behind. Story 113. I was the most muscular in my early 20s but felt stiff and unhealthy. 90 kilograms, mostly lean muscle after 4 months of strict dieting. I was really proud back then. Now I am 29 and much thinner but more functional when it comes to running, relative strength, and overall fitness. It is a journey, but I feel the healthiest now. Story 114. Currently 31 years old after starting up again last year. Statistically, ages 31 to 35 represent the peak physical condition for males, regardless of online culture claiming it is old. Story 115. I was a college athlete. I could run a 6-minute mile, squat 460 pounds, deadlift 525 pounds, and bench press 265 pounds with a shoulder injury. I had visible abs, all at 188 pounds. I am in my late 30s now, and I look like a typical guy who works out but eats too much. I definitely could stand to lose about 30 pounds. Story 116. About 18. In high school, I developed the habit of doing 100 sit-ups, push-ups, and squats with 2 10-pound dumbbells every night. It was almost effortless and took just a couple of minutes, so there was no reason not to do it. I weighed about 165 pounds at around 5 feet 10 inches. Story 117. Same age. Bench pressed 300 pounds at 130-pound body weight. Ran the obstacle course daily in military school. Story 118. Ages 18 to 21 when playing college football, then again 24 to 26 when going through Marine Corps officer school and other training. Different levels of physical fitness for each. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.